Wade Calloway smelled her before he saw her. Rain and cedar and something sweet like apples left too long in a warm room. He almost didn't stop. He almost pulled the tarp back over the crates of Honeycrisp seedlings and drove the last 2 miles home in the dark, the way he did every Thursday after the co-op meeting. Then the tarp moved. He froze with his hand on the truck bed, rain running down the back of his collar, and a voice came out from underneath the canvas, low, shaking, trying so hard not to shake. "Please don't scream." "I wasn't planning to," Wade said, which was not entirely true. His heart was going like a hammer on a loose fence post. "You want to tell me why there's a woman in my truck?" She pulled the tarp back just enough to show her face. Dark hair plastered to her cheek, a cut above one eyebrow, already turning purple at the edges. Eyes that kept flicking past him, toward the road, like she was still counting the seconds since something. "I need you to drive," she said. "Just drive, please. I'll explain everything, I promise, just not here." "Ma'am, I'm 2 miles from my own driveway." "Then take me the 2 miles." Her voice cracked on the last word, and that crack did something to Wade that logic couldn't argue with. "There's a black truck that's been circling town since 6 o'clock. If it finds me standing on a road with a bag in my hand, that's it. That's the whole thing, over, and I go back to something I would rather die than go back to." Wade looked down the empty road behind them. No headlights, just wet asphalt and the shapes of mountains going gray in the last of the light. "Get up front," he said. 10 minutes ago you were a stranger hiding under a tarp. Right now you're freezing. I'm not going to have that on my conscience, whatever else you are." She climbed into the cab like her whole body hurt to move. Up close, in the dome light, he saw the bruise wasn't just on her eyebrow. There was one blooming along her jaw too, the kind that took a few days to fully show. She caught him looking and turned her face to the window. "I'm not going to ask who did that," Wade said, pulling back onto the road. "Yet." "Thank you," she whispered. They drove in silence, past the Hendersons' barn, past the little white chapel with its crooked steeple, past the turnoff for the orchard that had been in his family for 4 generations. The wipers ticked back and forth. Somewhere behind them, headlights swept the trees. Far off, but there, the woman went rigid. "That's them." Wade's jaw tightened. He didn't know her. He didn't know her name. But he knew fear when it was sitting 1.5 feet from him, and he knew what kind of man put a bruise like that on someone's face. "Get down," he said, "under the dash. Now." She folded herself down without a word, and Wade slowed his breathing, made his hands loose on the wheel, and did what he'd been doing for 6 years since Caroline died. He made his face into something that gave nothing away. The black truck passed them going the other direction. Didn't slow, didn't turn around. The woman didn't come up from under the dash for a full minute after it was gone. "You can breathe now," Wade said quietly. She came up slow, wiping her eyes with the back of her wrist, angry at herself for crying, he could tell. "I'm sorry. I know this is insane. I know I'm asking a stranger to just, believe me, you are." Wade turned onto the gravel drive that led up through the orchard rows, apple trees standing black and silver in the last light. "So start believing me back. Whatever's chasing you, is it going to come looking for a farmhouse at the end of a dirt road?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "I hope not. I didn't have a plan past not being found tonight." "Well," Wade pulled up outside the house, porch light glowing yellow through the rain, and for the first time since she'd spoken from under the tarp, something in his chest loosened instead of tightened. "Tonight, that's covered. Tomorrow we'll figure out." She looked at him like she didn't quite trust the kindness, like she was waiting for the price tag. "There's a room over the garage," Wade said before she could ask what he wanted in return. "It's got a bed, heat, and a door that locks from the inside. You'll be safer there than most places between here and the state line. That's all I'm offering. No questions tonight." "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do that for someone you don't know?" Wade thought of Caroline, thought of the 6 years since, and the 8-year-old girl asleep in the house behind him, who still sometimes asked if Mama was coming back from her trip. "Because somebody should have stopped for you a long time before tonight," he said. "That's why." Her name was Nora. That much she gave him before she disappeared into the room over the garage, wrapped in one of Caroline's old coats, because it was the only spare thing warm enough, and Wade hadn't had the heart, or maybe the courage, to give away Caroline's coats in 6 years, so there they still hung. He didn't sleep much. He kept the porch light on and sat by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee going cold, watching the tree line for lights that never came back. At 6:40 the next morning, his daughter Etta padded into the kitchen in socked feet and an oversized flannel shirt that used to be her mother's, and said, without any preamble at all, the way 8-year-olds say the most important things, "There's a lady in the garage room." Wade nearly dropped the coffee pot. "You went up there?" "No, I saw the light was on and I looked out my window." Etta climbed onto a stool, entirely unbothered. "Is she a friend of yours?" "She's someone who needed help last night." "Is she staying?" "I don't know yet, Bug." Etta considered this with the seriousness only children can manage before 8 a.m. "Is she nice?" Wade thought about the rigid fear in the truck, the bruise, the way Nora had said thank you, like it cost her something to say it. Like gratitude itself was a thing she'd had to relearn how to give. "I think she's had a hard time," Wade said, "so we're going to be extra kind." "Can you do that?" "I'm always extra kind," Etta said, with the total confidence of a child who genuinely believed it, and mostly was right. It was Etta, in fact, who met Nora first, not Wade. He came out to the barn an hour later to find his daughter sitting cross-legged on the garage stairs, talking through the closed door like they were old friends already. "And my dad grows the best apples in the whole county. Everybody says so. Even Mr. Hendricks, who doesn't like anybody's apples but his own. Are you hungry? I could bring you eggs. I can't cook them yet, but I can carry a plate real good." There was a pause, then muffled through the door, a voice, rougher than the night before but warmer than Wade expected. "I would love some eggs," carried very carefully. Wade stood at the bottom of the stairs and didn't say anything, because something about the sound of his daughter laughing, really laughing, not the polite performance law she did with strangers, made him not want to interrupt it. Nora came down 20 minutes later, in Caroline's coat still, hair combed with her fingers, the bruise on her jaw undisguised because she hadn't tried to hide it. She looked like a woman who had decided, somewhere in the night, to stop apologizing for existing. "Your daughter," she told Wade, "is the best thing that's happened to me in about 4 days." "She has that effect," Wade said. "Coffee's on. You don't have to explain anything you don't want to. But if you're staying more than one night, I need to know one thing." "What's that? Is anyone going to come looking for you here specifically? Or were you just running until you ran out of road?" Nora wrapped both hands around the coffee mug he handed her like it was the only warm thing in the world. "I was running until I ran out of road," she admitted. "I didn't know this town existed until last night." "Then that's the only thing that matters right now," Wade said. "Everything else can wait." Over the next 3 days, Nora told Wade almost nothing and told Etta almost everything. Not the dangerous parts. Some instinct in her, sharpened by fear, kept the ugliest facts locked away from an 8-year-old's ears. But she told Etta about the bakery she used to help run back before, about the trick to keeping pie crust from shrinking, about a dog she'd had as a girl, gone now, that used to sleep across her feet every night like a promise. Wade got the edited version secondhand at dinner, delivered by his daughter, with the breathless energy of someone reporting classified intelligence. "She used to bake bread for a whole town," Etta reported on the second night, spearing green beans with more enthusiasm than the beans deserved. "And she can whistle with 2 fingers, and she says the mountains here remind her of home. Except home wasn't safe, so she doesn't miss it, she just misses parts of it." "Is that possible, Dad? To miss part of a place and not the rest?" Wade thought of the 4 years after Caroline's diagnosis, and the 2 after her funeral. How he missed the woman fiercely, and did not, if he was honest, miss the hospital hallways, or the particular smell of the room where she'd died. "Yeah, Bug," he said, "that's very possible." By the 3rd night, Nora had started coming down for dinner instead of taking a tray up, sitting stiff-backed at first, like a guest who expected to be told to leave, then slowly settling as the days piled up without incident. Wade noticed she always sat facing the door, noticed she flinched just slightly at truck engines on the road below until they passed and weren't the black one. He noticed, too, that she was watching him, cataloging him, the way a person does when they're trying to decide if safety is a fact or just a feeling that hasn't been disproven yet. "You haven't asked me to leave," she said on the fourth morning, finding him in the orchard checking irrigation lines before the day's heat. "Should I have?" Most people would have asked more questions by now. Wade straightened, wiped his hands on his jeans. "I had a wife," he said, "Carolyn. She used to say people don't owe you their whole story just because you were kind to them once. Kindness with a bill attached isn't kindness. It's a loan." Nora looked at him a long moment. "She sounds like she was very wise." She was. Wade turned back to the irrigation line. "I try to live up to it. Some days better than others." "I'll tell you," Nora said quietly. "When I'm not scared, telling you will put you in danger too. That's not me hiding for no reason. That's me trying to protect the only people who've been decent to me in longer than I want to admit." Wade nodded slowly. He didn't push. But that night, from his bedroom window, he watched the light stay on in the garage room until nearly 2 in the morning. And he understood that whatever she wasn't saying, it was heavier than she was letting on, and that sooner or later it was going to come looking for her here. Trust, Wade had learned from Caroline, was never built in a single conversation. It was built in the small, unglamorous repetitions nobody wrote songs about. So he didn't push for Nora's story. Instead, he fixed the wobbly step outside the garage room without being asked. He left a spare umbrella by her door before a week of rain rolled in off the ridge. He noticed, without comment, that she flinched at sudden loud noises and started closing the truck door a little softer when she was nearby. Nora noticed the noticing. That was, perhaps, the thing that undid her more than any grand gesture could have. She started helping in the kitchen. Small things at first, drying dishes, then graduating to actual cooking, once Etta vouched loudly and often for her pie crust. She fixed the hem on one of Etta's school dresses without being asked, sitting at the kitchen table with Wade's grandmother's old sewing kit, humming something under her breath that Wade didn't recognize but liked anyway. "You don't have to earn your keep," Wade told her one evening, finding her elbow deep in flour, a grocery store apron, his from some long-forgotten gift, tied twice around her narrow waist. "I know." Nora didn't look up from the dough. "I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I don't know how to just sit still and be given things. Not anymore." "Somebody made you feel like you had to earn every kindness," Wade said. It wasn't a question. Her hands stilled on the dough for just a second. Something like that. He let it be. But that night, watching her laugh at something Etta said, a real laugh, unguarded, surprising even herself, Wade felt something shift in his chest that he hadn't felt in 6 years. Not the ache of missing Caroline, something adjacent to it. Something that scared him a little, because it meant the ache had room, after all this time, for something new to grow beside it. He didn't examine it too closely, not yet. It felt too fragile, and too soon, and, he reminded himself, Nora was a woman running from something dangerous enough to leave bruises. Not a woman looking to fall in love with the next man who showed her basic decency. But 3 days later, when she fixed the hinge on the barn door herself, sweat on her brow, hair coming loose from its braid, and turned to him with pure triumph on her face. "I did it. Look, I fixed it myself." Wade laughed out loud, a real laugh, and thought, oh no. It was Etta who saw it first. She came running from the mailbox at the end of the drive, breath-ragged book bag forgotten in the grass behind her. Dad, the black truck. It stopped by our mailbox. A man got out and looked at our name on the box, and then he just stared up the driveway. Wade was in the barn in 4 strides, and out with a shotgun broken open over his arm, not raised, not threatening, just present. The way a man carries a tool he hopes not to use. By the time he reached the porch, Nora was already there, white as paper, one hand braced on the porch rail like it was the only thing holding her upright. "Go inside," Wade told her. "Take Etta, lock door." Wade, "Inside, please." She went. He watched from the porch as the black truck idled at the end of the long gravel drive for nearly a full minute. Long enough that Wade's hand tightened on the shotgun, though he kept it low. And then, without ever turning up the drive, it pulled away. Wade didn't move for another 5 minutes after it was gone. Then he went inside and found Nora sitting at the kitchen table with Etta held tight against her side. Both of them very still, and he understood, looking at them together, that something in him had already decided this wasn't a temporary arrangement anymore. "Tell me," he said quietly, once Etta had been coaxed upstairs with the promise of a movie and extra pillows. "All of it. I can't protect you from something I don't understand." Nora's hands were shaking around her coffee mug. "His name is Grant Ashworth," she said finally. He was going to be my husband. My family owed his family money, a lot of it. My father's bakery, it failed, and Grant's family held the loan, and Grant decided the debt could be settled if I married him instead." "That's not a marriage," Wade said, voice low and hard. "That's a transaction with a ring on it. I know that now." Nora's jaw tightened. "I didn't understand it fully until the night before the wedding, when I found out the real terms. That after we married, my father's debt transferred to me. And if I ever tried to leave, Grant's family could take the bakery, take everything, take my mother's house. It wasn't a marriage. It was a cage with vows read over it. So you ran." "The morning of my own wedding," Nora said, and something in her voice cracked wide open, not tears but old anger finally given permission to speak. "In my dress, if you can believe it, I changed in a gas station bathroom 4 towns over. That bruise," she touched her jaw without thinking, "that was Grant's brother catching up to me at a bus station 2 days later. I got away, barely. I've been running since." Wade sat with that a long moment. "And the men in the black truck? Grant hired someone. He has to find me before the wedding contract's legal window closes, or the debt structure falls apart and he loses the bakery claim entirely. That's not love chasing me, Wade. That's an accountant with a grudge." "How long is the window?" Nora looked up at him, and for the first time since the truck bed, there was something like hope flickering underneath the fear. 6 more weeks. Wade nodded slowly and made a decision he would spend the following weeks discovering the full weight of. "Then you're not running anymore," he said. "You're staying. And if anybody comes up that driveway asking questions, they're going to find a woman who belongs here, not a woman hiding." "Wade, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking," Wade said. "I'm offering. There's a difference. Caroline taught me that too. The idea, when it came from Etta, the way the truest things in that house so often did. Pretend she's your wife," she announced at breakfast, entirely too pleased with herself, syrup dripping off her fork. "Then the bad man can't take her because you're already married to her. Simple." Wade choked on his coffee. Nora went pink to the roots of her hair. "Sweetheart, that's not how marriage works," Wade managed. "It's how pretending works," Etta said, with the flawless logic of a 3rd grader. "Miss Delgado at the market, she asks about you all the time. If Nora's your wife, everybody stops asking. And the bad man's whole plan doesn't work because his plan is she's not married to anybody yet." Wade opened his mouth to shut the idea down entirely, and then closed it again, because underneath the 8-year-old delivery, there was something with actual teeth in it. "She's not wrong," Nora said slowly, staring at her plate. "Grant's claim only holds if I'm unmarried when the contract window closes. If there's a marriage certificate, even one that's," she seemed to struggle for the word, "complicated, it changes everything legally. His lawyers would have to fight a whole new battle just to prove it isn't real." "You're talking about actually marrying a stranger," Wade said carefully, "to stop a man who tried to force you into exactly that." "I'm talking about surviving," Nora said, and there was steel under the words now. The same steel that had gotten her out of a wedding dress and into a gas station bathroom 4 towns from home. "I'm not asking you to feel anything you don't feel. I'm asking for paperwork and a story people believe." Wade looked at his daughter, chin propped on her hands, watching them both with an expression far too knowing for 8 years old. He looked at Nora, steady now, not shaking. A woman who'd found her spine again sometime over the last 2 weeks in his kitchen. "Let me think on it," he said. "Not because I'm against it, because a thing like this, even pretend, deserves to be thought through properly, not decided over pancakes." But that night, lying awake, Wade found himself thinking less about the danger and more about the strange, quiet fact that the idea of Nora as his wife, even a pretend one, even one built on paperwork and necessity, didn't frighten him nearly as much as it probably should have. They sat down properly 2 nights later, after Etta was asleep, with 2 cups of coffee going cold between them and a legal pad Nora had found in Wade's desk drawer. "If we're doing this," Wade said, "we do it honest. Even the pretend parts. Rule 1, Etta doesn't get hurt by this. Not confused, not disappointed, not caught in the middle if it falls apart." "Agreed," Nora said immediately. "I already love that girl too much to let this hurt her." Something in Wade's chest tightened at, "I already love that girl." He didn't say anything about it. "Rule 2, he continued. "This is protection, not anything else. I'm not going to let you feel obligated to be more than my legal wife on paper. You've had enough people in your life deciding what they're owed from you." Nora's eyes softened. "Thank you for that." Rule 3, when the 6 weeks are up, when Grant's legal window closes and you're safe, there's no pressure to stay married. No pressure to stay at all if you don't want to. This isn't a trap disguised as kindness, Wade. Nora reached across the table, hesitated, then set her hand over his, the first time she touched him on purpose since the truck. "I need you to know something. I'm not scared of this like I was scared of Grant. I'm scared of this because some part of me wants it to be real, and I don't trust myself to know the difference between gratitude and something else yet. I don't want to confuse you or hurt you by not being sure." Wade turned his hand over under hers so their palms met properly. "Then we don't rush finding out," he said. "We do the paperwork. We do the pretending where it needs pretending, and we let the rest of it happen in its own time, if it happens at all. No promises either of us can't keep." "That's a very patient offer." Caroline used to say I was infuriatingly patient. A small, sad smile crossed his face. "Took me 2 years to work up the nerve to ask her to dance at a county fair. She said if patience were a crop, I'd have retired at 25. Nora laughed, a real laugh, warm in the quiet kitchen. "I think I'd have liked her. She'd have liked you too," Wade said, surprised to find he meant it completely. She had no patience for cruelty and endless patience for anyone trying to survive it. You'd have fit right into her definition of people worth knowing. They sat a while longer, the coffee going properly cold. 2 people negotiating the terms of a lie that both of them were already half hoping might not stay one. The Millbrook County Courthouse smelled like old paper and lemon polish, and Judge Owens, who'd known Wade since he was in short pants, raised exactly 1 eyebrow at the marriage license application before sliding his glasses down his nose to look at them both properly. "Wade Calloway," he said slowly, "didn't figure you for eloping. Where's the fanfare?" Caroline would have had opinions about a courthouse wedding. God rest her. "Caroline would have had opinions about everything, Judge. You know that," Wade said, and something eased in his chest at being able to say her name easily, without the old grief flinch. This felt right for where we're at. Small, quiet. Nora beside him wore a simple blue dress borrowed from a shop in town. Nothing like the wedding dress she'd fled in weeks before, and held a small bouquet of orchard blossoms Etta had picked that morning with fierce concentration, insisting each stem be exactly perfect. The judge looked between them a moment longer than was strictly necessary, the way people who've spent 30 years reading rooms tend to do. "Well," he said finally, "whatever this is, it's your business and not mine. Let's get you married then." The ceremony took 4 minutes. Wade would remember all 4 of them for the rest of his life. He remembered Nora's hand, steadier than he expected, when he slid the plain gold band onto her finger, his grandmother's ring, the only one in the house that fit, and something about that fact felt less like coincidence than he was ready to examine. He remembered Etta in the front row, practically vibrating with the seriousness of her role as flower picker and witness. He remembered saying "I do" and meaning, at minimum, "I will protect you," and privately wondering, with something like fear and something like hope tangled together, whether he meant more than that already. He remembered Nora's voice catching, just slightly, on her own "I do," and the look she gave him afterward, somewhere between disbelief and something warmer, like she was still waiting for the world to take this good thing away from her, too. It didn't, not that day. "Kiss the bride," Judge Owens said, with the particular dryness of a man who'd said the line 4,000 times. Wade looked at Nora. Nora looked at Wade. And in the small, lemon polish-smelling courthouse, in front of a judge and an 8-year-old holding orchard blossoms. They shared a kiss that was meant to be for show, brief, appropriate, a formality for the paperwork. It did not feel like a formality to either of them. Neither said so out loud. Both noticed the other hadn't pulled away as quickly as the plan required. "Well," Etta announced into the silence that followed, hands on her hips finally. The trouble with pretending, Wade discovered quickly, was that it required constant small tells of intimacy that had nothing pretend about them at all. He learned Nora took her coffee black until 10 a.m., and with cream after. "My body changes its mind at 10, I don't make the rules." He learned she hummed while she cooked, always the same 3 notes, over and over, like a habit older than she could explain. He learned that when nightmares found her, and they still did some nights, thin cries through the garage room wall, he'd insisted she keep using even after the wedding, because rushing anything further felt wrong. He needed exactly one thing afterward, someone in the next room who didn't make a fuss about it in the morning. He gave her that quietly, every time. Nora, for her part, learned things about Wade that surprised her, that he read to Etta every single night, without fail, doing all the voices badly and enthusiastically. That he still wore his wedding ring from Caroline on a chain under his shirt, not from confusion about his new marriage, but because, as he explained, awkwardly, one evening on the porch, she was Etta's mother. "That doesn't stop being true just because my life keeps going. I figure you understand that better than most people would." "I do," Nora said quietly. "Grief isn't something you're supposed to replace, Wade. It's something you're allowed to carry alongside new things. I'd never ask you to put her away in a drawer." "I know," Wade said. "That's part of why this doesn't feel as strange as it should." At the market in town, they played their parts. Wade's hand at the small of her back, easy and natural, in a way that stopped being performance somewhere around the 2nd week. Miss Delgado, at the register, cooed over the whirlwind romance with the delighted nosiness of every small-town shopkeeper who'd ever lived. And Nora smiled and let the cover story do its work, and felt something curl warm and uneasy in her chest every time Wade's arm found its way around her, without either of them quite deciding it should. "People are going to talk," she warned him one night, both of them on the porch swing, Etta's window dark above them. "People have been talking about me since Caroline died," Wade said. "Let them talk about something good for once." "Is it good?" Nora asked quietly. "Even the pretend parts?" Wade was quiet a long moment, the swing creaking gently under them, crickets loud in the orchard beyond. "I don't think it's all pretend anymore," he admitted. "I think some of it got real when I wasn't watching for it." Nora's breath caught. She didn't answer, not with words, but she didn't move away from him either, and the space between them on the swing got just a little smaller. And neither of them mentioned it, and both of them noticed. It was Etta, inevitably, who asked the question neither adult had found the courage for. "Do you love her?" she asked her father one evening, entirely without warning, while they were shelling peas on the back porch, and Nora was inside finishing supper. Wade nearly dropped the colander. "Etta?" "It's an easy question," Etta said, with the devastating patience of a child repeating herself for a slow adult. "You look at her like you used to look at the picture of Mom on the mantle, the soft way. So do you love her, or are we still pretending?" Wade set the colander down carefully, buying himself a moment. His daughter watched him with Caroline's exact same patient eyes, waiting him out, unhurried, the way she waited for anything she considered important. "I think I might," Wade said finally. Honestly, because lying to Etta about the things that mattered had never once gone well for him. "I wasn't planning on it. It found me anyway. Good." Etta went back to shelling peas like the matter was settled. "I like her a whole lot. It'd be silly to keep pretending if you don't have to. It's not that simple, Bug. There's still danger out there for her. And even without that, grown-up feelings take time to be sure of. It wouldn't be fair to rush her, or to say things I'm not steady enough to mean all the way yet." Etta considered this with the seriousness of a much older person. "Okay," she said, "but when you are steady enough, you should tell her. She looks sad sometimes when she thinks nobody's watching. I think she's waiting to find out if this is real too." Wade looked at his daughter, 8 years old, and somehow wiser about the architecture of the human heart than he'd managed to be in 34 years of living in one. "When did you get so smart?" he asked. "Mom was smart," Etta said simply. "I figure some of it's still around. Maybe it just moved into me for a while." Wade had to look away from her for a second, throat tight, because there were days grief still arrived sideways like that, unannounced, dressed up as something sweet. That night, watching Nora through the kitchen window as she hummed her 3 notes over the stove, Wade thought about his daughter's question and about the answer he'd given, without quite meaning to say it out loud yet. "I think I might." He was starting to understand it wasn't a maybe at all. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, plain and cream-colored, postmarked from 3 states away, and Nora's hands went cold the moment she recognized the handwriting on the envelope. Grant. She didn't open it in the kitchen. She took it to the garage room, old habit, retreating to the space that had first been safe, and sat on the edge of the bed with her heart hammering before she finally tore it open. "I know where you are. I've known for 2 weeks. I'm not writing to threaten you, whatever you might expect from me by now. I'm writing because my brother went further than I authorized, and I've spent the time since trying to decide what kind of man I actually want to be. That bruise on your jaw, I saw the photo my brother sent, bragging like it was something to be proud of. It made me sick, genuinely. The debt window closes in 11 days. My lawyers tell me your marriage, however sudden, is airtight enough to end any claim my family has on your father's bakery or your mother's house. I want you to know I'm not going to fight it. I'm done fighting for something that was never really mine to claim. I'm sorry it took you fleeing your own wedding for me to understand that. I hope you're safe. I hope, wherever you landed, it's kinder than where you started." Nora read it 3 times before her hands stopped shaking. Then she cried. Not from fear this time, but from the strange, disorienting relief of a threat simply ending. Not with violence, not with a final confrontation in the dark, with a letter and an apology and a man finally choosing decency, too late to matter, but not too late to help. Wade found her there 20 minutes later, when she hadn't come down for supper, and sat beside her on the bed without asking permission, the way he'd learned to over the past weeks. Present, patient, not pushing. "It's over," Nora said, handing him the letter. "Or it's ending. 11 days and the debt window closes for good. Grant's not fighting it." Wade read it slowly, jaw tight through most of it, softening only at the end. "How do you feel?" "I don't know yet." Nora wiped her eyes, laughed a little, disbelieving. "I've been running so long I don't know what I'm supposed to feel when the running's actually done." "You don't have to know right away," Wade said. "You can just feel whatever shows up. That's allowed." Nora looked at him, really looked, the way she hadn't quite let herself since the wedding, since the kiss that wasn't supposed to mean anything and clearly had. "Wade, when the 11 days are up, when I'm actually legally safe and there's no more danger giving either of us a reason to keep pretending." "Nora." Wade's voice was quiet, steady. "I don't want you to answer that question right now, with relief still fresh and your hands still shaking. Ask me again in 11 days. If the answer's still there, I promise you, so will I." The 11 days passed strangely, too slow and too fast at once, the way important stretches of time always do. Nora called her mother for the first time in a month, voice breaking with relief on both ends of the line, learning that the baker, struggling but standing, hadn't been touched, and wouldn't be now that Grant's family had formally withdrawn every claim. She cried again, differently this time. The specific grief relief of realizing home hadn't burned down in her absence after all. Etta, blissfully unaware of the emotional tightrope her father and his wife were walking, spent the 11 days in a state of undiluted joy, planning, loudly, and often, for when it's not pretend married anymore. Is it going to be a different wedding or the same one or a bigger one? Can I be a flower girl properly this time with a real dress? Wade let her plan. He didn't correct her. Some part of him, watching Nora across the kitchen table each night, humming her 3 notes, wearing his grandmother's ring like it had always belonged there, didn't want to correct her either. But he kept his promise. He didn't push. He let the 11 days be exactly what they needed to be. A slow unclenching, a woman learning, day by day, what it felt like to stop bracing for the next blow. On day 9, Nora found him in the orchard at dusk, checking the last of the late-season apples, and stood beside him a long moment without speaking, watching the sun go copper behind the ridgeline. "I used to think love had to be earned," she said finally, "that you had to prove yourself worthy of it over and over, or it could be taken back at any second. Grant taught me that, without meaning to teach me anything at all. It just seeped in." "That's not love," Wade said quietly. "That's a transaction wearing love's clothes." "I know that now." Nora turned to face him fully. "You never once asked me to earn anything. Not the safety, not the kindness, not even the wedding ring. You just gave it, like it wasn't a big decision for you at all." "It was the easiest decision I've made in 6 years," Wade admitted. "Caroline used to say the right things don't usually feel hard once you stop overthinking them. I stopped overthinking somewhere around the second week you were here." Nora stepped closer, close enough that he could see the last of the fear finally gone from her eyes, replaced with something steadier. 11 days isn't up yet." "No," Wade agreed. "But I don't think either of us needs the rest of them to know the answer." She kissed him first. This time, no judge waiting, no witnesses but the apple trees and the fading light, no legal necessity requiring it of either of them. It was nothing like the courthouse kiss. That one had been careful, brief, dressed up as formality. This one was slow and certain and entirely unrushed. The kind of kiss two people give each other when they've finally stopped bracing for the ground to disappear beneath them. When they broke apart, Nora laughed, soft, disbelieving, her forehead resting against his. "So much for waiting 11 days. "I never said I was patient about everything," Wade said, smiling against her hair. "Just dancing at county fairs." "Wade." Nora pulled back enough to look at him properly, serious now. "I need to say this plainly, because I spent too long letting other people leave things unspoken until it was too late to matter. I love you. Not the version of you that rescued me from a truck bed. The version of you that reads badly voiced bedtime stories and wears his first wife's ring on a chain because grief and love aren't supposed to cancel each other out. That version. All of it." Wade's throat tightened, the good kind of tight. "I love you too," he said. "I think I have for a while. I just didn't want to say it until I was sure it wasn't just relief or convenience or two lonely people finding comfort in a hard situation. And now I'm sure." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so natural it startled them both with how unremarkable it felt. "This started as a lie to keep you safe. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being a lie at all." From the porch, unseen, or perhaps not as unseen as she believed, Etta watched the whole thing with her chin in her hands and an expression of pure, unrestrained satisfaction already composing, in her 8-year-old mind, exactly how she would tell Miss Delgado at the market that she had, in fact, called it first. The real wedding 6 weeks later, the whole of Millbrook Hollow turned out for a wedding that needed no judge, no paperwork, no urgency. Only the orchard in full bloom, string lights threaded through the branches, and a community that had watched a quiet man find his way back to joy. Etta walked the aisle first, exactly as promised. In a real dress this time, scattering apple blossoms with a solemnity that made half the congregation laugh and the other half reach for tissues. Nora wore her mother's wedding dress this time. Not the one she'd fled in, but her own mother's, altered and sent up from 3 states away with a letter that read simply, "Come home whenever you're ready, but I understand if home found you first." Judge Owens, presiding again, seemed only right given I already did the paperwork once, looked between them with something like satisfaction as he reached the vows. "Wade Calloway," he said, "you've had 6 weeks longer than most men to know your own mind on this. Anything you want to add to the record?" Wade looked at Nora, steady, sunlit, no fear left in her at all, and thought of a truck bed on a rainy night, and a woman who'd asked a stranger to pretend, and how the pretending had somehow become the truest thing in his life. "Just that I'd stop for her again," he said. "Every single time, in every version of this life." Nora's eyes shone. "I found more than safety hiding under that tarp," she said, voice steady now in a way it hadn't been in that first truck bed whisper. "I found home. I didn't know I was allowed to want that again until you gave it to me without asking for anything back. They kissed as husband and wife for the second time. The real time. Everyone in the orchard would later agree, though the courthouse one had certainly done its job, and Etta, catching the bouquet she absolutely was not supposed to be old enough to catch, declared to the entire assembled town of Millbrook Hollow that she had, in fact, called it first, which nobody present had the heart to dispute. The orchard was heavy with fruit again. Another season turned, and Wade Calloway stood at the end of his gravel drive checking the mailbox. The same drive where a black truck had once idled and driven away for good. Behind him, the porch light glowed warm against the early dusk. Nora's laugh carried from the kitchen, tangled up with Etta's, the two of them elbow-deep in flour for a pie that would, if history was any guide, come out slightly lopsided and taste better than anything store-bought ever could. Wade thought sometimes about that rainy Thursday, the smell of cedar and apples, a voice from under a tarp asking him not to scream, a whispered request to pretend, just until they were out of town. They'd made it out of town, in the end. Further than that, they'd made it home. He walked back up the drive slowly, unhurried, the way he did most things now, and let himself simply enjoy the sound of his family's laughter spilling out into the orchard evening. No longer pretend, no longer temporary, no longer anything but exactly, entirely real. The end.